Yamaha XS650 died in showrooms in 1985. 40 years later, it's more popular than ever. In 1969, Yamaha launched a 654cc parallel twin that looked British but ran like Japanese machinery. It sold moderately for 16 years, got discontinued, and should have been forgotten like hundreds of other 1970s motorcycles. Instead, it became a legend. Kenny Roberts won a national championship racing one. Custom builders made it the most popular café racer platform in history. Mechanics discovered engines running past 100,000 miles without rebuilds. How did a bike Yamaha abandoned become the one riders refused to let die? Let's find out. The XS650 story doesn't begin in Japan. It begins in post-war Germany with a motorcycle company called Horex. Horex had been building motorcycles since 1920. After World War II ended, the company resumed production with new designs. In 1951, they released the Imperator, a 500cc parallel twin with overhead camshaft design. The Imperator engine was advanced for its time. Most twins of that era used pushrod valve operation. Horex used a single overhead camshaft. Most competitors had vertically split crankcases that leaked oil. Horex designed a horizontally split crankcase that sealed better. But Horex didn't survive long enough to exploit their engineering. In 1960, Daimler-Benz purchased Horex and shut down motorcycle production. The Imperator engine design didn't die with Horex. Around 1955, a Japanese company called Hosk had been studying Horex motorcycles. They saw potential in the parallel twin design and began developing their own version, expanding it from 500cc to 650cc. In 1960, another Japanese company called Showa purchased Hosk. That same year, Yamaha purchased Showa. Through this chain of acquisitions, Yamaha inherited the Horex-inspired 650cc parallel twin design that Hosk had been developing. Yamaha sat on this design for nearly a decade. They had the engineering for a world-class parallel twin, but they didn't immediately build it. The design languished while Yamaha focused on other projects. Finally, in 1968, Yamaha decided to put the 650cc twin into production. By then, the moment to beat British motorcycles had largely passed. Japanese manufacturers like Honda had already established dominance, but Yamaha built it anyway. When the XS650 launched in October 1969 as the XS1, it had one of the most advanced parallel twin engines in its class. The 654cc engine used single overhead cam valve operation when most competitors still relied on pushrods. The engine and gearbox were unit construction, meaning they were built as one piece rather than separate components bolted together. The crankcase split horizontally for assembly. This sounds like a minor detail, but it mattered. British parallel twins split their crankcases vertically, which created oil leaks. The XS650's horizontal split sealed better and didn't leave oil stains on garage floors. Inside the engine, Yamaha used roller and ball bearings throughout. The crankshaft ran on 3 roller bearings and 1 ball bearing. The connecting rods used needle bearings. The bearing design came from Yamaha's experience with 2-stroke engines, where reliability under stress was critical. The engine promised approximately 53 horsepower at 7,000 RPM. Not spectacular, but adequate. More importantly, it was reliable. The engine had one unusual characteristic, a 360-degree crankshaft. In most parallel twins, the pistons move in opposition to balance each other. In the XS650, both pistons rose and fell together. This created vibration, especially at idle and high speeds. Yamaha chose not to add counterbalancing to eliminate the vibration. The result was a bike that shook. Riders could feel the engine's pulse through the handlebars and foot pegs. Motorcycle journalists complained about this vibration. Many riders actually loved it. The vibration gave the bike character. At idle, it pounded and rumbled. Under acceleration, it snarled. The XS650 didn't purr like a Honda 4-cylinder. It growled like something alive. Early models used kickstart only. In 1971, Yamaha added an electric starter with a compression release mechanism. In 1974, they upgraded the starter motor and removed the compression release. The first models had drum brakes front and rear. In 1972, Yamaha added a front disc brake. By 1975, the XS650B model had disc brakes front and rear, but the bike had problems Yamaha hadn't anticipated. The XS650's engine was solid. The frame was not. Yamaha had taken a frame design originally intended for 2-stroke engines and dropped the 360-degree 4-stroke twin into it. The frame lacked the rigidity needed to handle the vibration and power characteristics. Riders reported speed wobbles. The bike would start shaking at highway speeds, sometimes violently. The handling felt vague and unpredictable. At high speeds, the bike wallowed rather than trekking straight. Yamaha's engineers had built a reliable engine, but the chassis was inadequate. The XS650 community didn't wait for Yamaha to fix it. Owners diagnosed the problems themselves and shared solutions. They discovered that replacing the stock head stem bearings helped. Installing brass swing arm bushes reduced play in the rear suspension. Adding a single bolt and spacer to the front engine mount stiffened the frame slightly. Upgrading the rear shock absorbers improved stability. These weren't official Yamaha fixes. They were grassroots solutions developed by riders who wanted their bikes to work properly. Yamaha eventually responded. The 1975 XS650B model introduced a stiffer frame design. The handling issues decreased significantly, but by then, the bike's reputation for poor handling had already spread. The XS650 never became the sales success Yamaha hoped for. It sold steadily but not spectacularly. From 1969 to 1985, Yamaha built approximately 500,000 XS650s globally. That's respectable, but Honda's CB750 outsold it dramatically. Production ended in 1983 in the United States. Canada, Europe, and other markets continued receiving XS650s until 1985. Many 1982 and 83 models sat unsold in dealerships due to overproduction and economic recession. As late as 1987, buyers could still purchase brand new 1983 XS650s from dealers trying to clear old inventory. The XS650 faded from Yamaha's lineup without fanfare. No special edition, no celebration. It simply stopped being manufactured because it wasn't selling well enough to justify continued production. But that wasn't the end of the story. That was just the beginning. While Yamaha struggled to sell XS650s to street riders, a young racer named Kenny Roberts was discovering what the engine could really do. In the early 1970s, American flat track racing was dominated by Harley-Davidson. The XR750 Harley was the bike to beat, and most competitors weren't beating it. Kenny Roberts rode for Yamaha in AMA dirt track competition. He was given an XS650 street bike engine to race against purpose-built Harley racing machinery. On paper, this was ridiculous. The XS650 made less power than the XR750. It was heavier. It wasn't designed for racing. Roberts should have been demolished. Instead, he made the XS650 competitive through sheer riding skill and determination. He compensated for the power deficit by carrying more speed through corners and braking later. He made the bike work through technique rather than horsepower. In 1974, Kenny Roberts won the AMA Grand National Championship racing an XS650 powered flat tracker. He beat the Harley-Davidson factory team. He proved that the Yamaha Twin, despite being underpowered and based on a street bike, could win at the highest level of American dirt track racing. Roberts didn't win because the XS650 was the best bike. He won it because it was reliable enough to finish races while he pushed it beyond its design limits. The XS650 engine survived the abuse of professional flat track racing. Races after races, the engine held together. The bottom end with its roller and ball bearings handled the stress. The simple overhead cam design didn't break. This racing success revealed something Yamaha hadn't emphasized in their marketing. The XS650 engine was tough, not just reliable for street riding, but genuinely durable under racing conditions. Roberts eventually moved to more powerful Yamaha race bikes and then to road racing in Europe, where he became a world champion. But his success on the XS650 established the bike's reputation among racers. If Kenny Roberts could win a national championship on an XS650 while fighting against more powerful bikes, maybe the engine had more potential than Yamaha realized. By the mid-1980s, the XS650 was dead as a commercial product. Yamaha had moved on to other models. Dealers had cleared out remaining inventory. The bike should have faded into history alongside dozens of other forgettable motorcycles from that era. Instead, something unexpected happened. The XS650 became more popular after it died than when it was alive. Custom motorcycle builders discovered the XS650 and fell in love with it. The bike had everything custom builders wanted: a simple, reliable engine, classic styling that resembled British twins, plentiful used examples, and cheap prices. In the 2000s and 2010s, the XS650 became the go-to platform for café racer builds. Builders stripped off the stock bodywork, added low handlebars and rear set foot pegs, fabricated custom seats and fuel tanks, and created bikes that looked nothing like the original Yamaha. The XS650 earned a nickname in the custom community: the best British bike never built. It had the visual appeal and character of classic British parallel twins like Triumph Bonnevilles and BSA twins, but with Japanese reliability that actually worked. Around 5 or 6 years ago, you could buy a decent running XS650 for relatively cheap. The supply seemed endless. Yamaha had built 500,000 of them over 16 years, creating a deep used market. Custom builders took advantage. Companies like TC Bros Choppers and Omega Racer built entire product lines around XS650 parts. You could buy upgraded electrical systems, custom frames, performance exhaust systems, suspension components, and hundreds of other parts designed specifically for XS650 customs. The aftermarket for the XS650 grew larger after production ended than it had been when Yamaha was still building the bike. This wasn't Yamaha's doing. This was riders and builders recognizing value that Yamaha's marketing department had missed. The XS650's durability came from decisions Yamaha made about the engine's internal design. Using roller and ball bearings throughout the engine meant less friction than plain bearings. The crankshaft ran on 3 roller bearings and the ball bearing. The connecting rods used needle bearings. These bearing choices came from Yamaha's 2-stroke engine experience, where engines had to survive high RPM and stress. The horizontally split crankcase was easier to seal than vertical splits. British twins leaked oil constantly because their vertical crankcase splits were difficult to seal properly. The XS650's horizontal split stayed tight. The single overhead camshaft design was simpler than pushrod systems with separate rocker arms and adjusters. Fewer parts meant fewer things to break. The cam chain ran directly from the crankshaft center to the camshaft, with a spring-loaded tensioner maintaining proper tension automatically. The engine's lubrication system used a tricoidal pump driven by a gear off the crankshaft. Pressurized oil fed the main bearings, transmission, clutch, and rocker arms. The rest of the engine relied on oil splash, including the big end bearings on the connecting rods. The simple system worked reliably for decades. Early XS650 models used twin 38mm constant velocity Mikuni carburetors. These carbs were simple to tune compared to 4 carburetor setups on inline-4 engines. 2 carburetors meant less complexity and easier maintenance. The engine wasn't particularly powerful or sophisticated. It was simply well designed for durability. Yamaha hadn't tried to extract maximum horsepower. They built an engine that would run reliably with basic maintenance. Riders discovered they could abuse XS650 engines and the bikes kept running. Mechanics found they could rebuild XS650 engines with basic tools. The engine design was forgiving of neglect and mistakes. The durability became more valuable over time. As motorcycles became more complex with fuel injection, electronic injection systems, and computer controls, the XS650's simplicity became an advantage. It was a bike that anyone could work on without specialized tools or dealer-specific diagnostic equipment. The XS650 wasn't perfect. Yamaha knew about its problems but never fully addressed them during the 16 years of production. The vibration from the 360-degree crankshaft remained throughout production. Some riders loved the character it created, others found it tiring on long rides. Yamaha never added counterbalancing to smooth it out. The early frame problems took until 1975 to address properly. Riders who bought XS650s between 1969 and 1974 got bikes with handling issues that required aftermarket fixes or replacement parts to correct. The suspension was basic and underdamped from the factory. The front forks lacked adjustability. The rear shocks were adequate for casual riding but overwhelmed by aggressive riding or heavy loads. Riders who wanted better handling had to replace the suspension with aftermarket components. The electrical system used point ignition until 1979. Points required regular adjustment and replacement. Post-1979 models got electronic injection, but only in the final years of production. Yamaha made changes year to year, but mostly small updates rather than major improvements. They increased fork tube diameter from 34mm to 35mm midway through 1977. They changed the front brake caliper mounting position in 1976. They introduced the special cruiser variant in 1978 with different styling. But these were incremental upgrades, not fundamental improvements. Yamaha never redesigned the engine for more power or better efficiency. They never addressed the vibration issue. They never upgraded the suspension significantly. The XS650 that rolled off the line in 1985 was fundamentally the same bike as the 1969 model, just with minor refinements accumulated over 16 years. When riders see an XS650 today, many mistake it for a British motorcycle. That confusion isn't accidental. It's exactly what Yamaha intended. In 1969, British parallel twins dominated the middleweight motorcycle market. Triumph Bonnevilles, BSA twins, and Norton Commandos defined what a proper motorcycle should look like. Vertical twin cylinders, classic fuel tank shapes, spoke wheels, simple lines. Yamaha studied these bikes and copied the formula, but with one crucial difference. They made it work reliably. British motorcycles had earned reputations for character and charm, but also chronic unreliability. They leaked oil from vertical crankcase splits that were difficult to seal. They vibrated them loose. They required constant adjustment and maintenance. Starting a British bike on a cold morning was an adventure that often ended in frustration. The joke among British bike owners was that you needed 3 of them. One to ride, one in the shop, and one being rebuilt. Yamaha looked at British parallel twins and saw an opportunity. They could build a bike with that classic styling and character, but make it actually work. The XS650 achieved this by copying the looks while improving the engineering. The horizontally split crankcase didn't leak. The unit construction, engine and gearbox eliminated the complexity of separate components. The roller and ball bearings throughout the engine reduced friction and wear. British bike purists dismissed the XS650 as a copy. They claimed it lacked the soul and character of genuine British iron. But riders who actually use motorcycles for transportation instead of weekend posing discovered the truth. The XS650 looked like a Triumph, sounded similar to a BSA, but started every morning and didn't leave oil stains on garage floors. This created an identity crisis for the bike. British motorcycle enthusiasts saw it as a fake. Japanese bike fans saw it as old-fashioned compared to Honda's modern inline 4s. The XS650 was caught between 2 worlds. Not quite British enough for traditionalists and not quite Japanese enough for modernists. Years later, custom builders gave the bike a new nickname that captured this identity perfectly: the best British bike never built. It had everything British parallel twins promised but rarely delivered: classic styling, torquey engine character, simple mechanics, and a visceral riding experience. But it also had Japanese reliability, which British bikes famously lacked. The XS650 survived because it was the British bike that actually worked. By the time Yamaha stopped building them in 1985, the motorcycle industry had collapsed. Triumph, BSA and Norton were defunct or had been sold off. The bikes that inspired the XS650 were gone, but the copy kept running. The XS650's durability gets praised today, but that reputation was nearly destroyed by how the bikes were treated during their production years. After the first few years of production, the XS650 stopped being Yamaha's flagship model. It became a cheaper alternative for new riders. The price dropped, the bias changed, and the bike started getting abused. Many XS650s were purchased by inexperienced riders who had little mechanical knowledge. They treated the bike like a car, assuming it needed minimal maintenance. But motorcycle engines work harder than car engines. They rev higher, they require more frequent oil changes, they need regular valve adjustments. Most XS650s never got that care. The bike would get sold to a new rider who rode it hard for a year or two, did minimal maintenance, then sold it cheap to another inexperienced rider. Then the cycle repeated. Each owner beat the bike a little more. Each sale price dropped lower. By the 1990s and early 2000s, you could buy a running XS650 for a few $100s. These bikes were usually beat up, neglected, and barely functional, but they were cheap, which made them popular with people who wanted a motorcycle but couldn't afford anything better. This created a paradox. The XS650 engine was durable enough to survive years of neglect, which proved its toughness, but that same durability meant abused bikes kept running, which hurt the bike's reputation. Riders who bought cheap, neglected XS650s and expected them to run flawlessly were disappointed. The bikes needed work. They vibrated because engine mounts were worn. They didn't handle well because suspension bushings were shot. They burned oil because previous owners had ignored maintenance. These problems weren't design flaws, they were neglect damage. But inexperienced buyers blamed the bike rather than the previous owners who had abused it. XS650 enthusiasts watched this happen with frustration. They knew the bike was solid if properly maintained. They saw newcomers buying thrashed examples, experiencing problems, and concluding the XS650 was unreliable. Forums like the XS650.com became essential resources for new owners learning how to revive neglected bikes. Experienced owners shared knowledge about common problems, maintenance schedules, and upgrade paths. They taught new riders how to diagnose issues and perform repairs. This community knowledge saved countless XS650s from the scrapyard. Bikes that seemed hopeless could be rebuilt with patience and basic mechanical skills. The simple design meant repairs were straightforward. The strong bottom end meant engines could be revived even after years of abuse. As prices started rising in the 2010s, the quality of available XS650s improved slightly. Buyers became more selective. Sellers realized they couldn't get away with selling completely thrashed bikes. The worst examples got parted out, and the survivors received better care. Today, finding a cheap XS650 is difficult. Clean examples command premium prices. Even project bikes cost more than running XS650s did 15 years ago. The days of $300 runners are gone. But that price increase brought a benefit. Owners who invest more money in purchasing an XS650 tend to invest more in maintaining it. The bikes get better care now than they did when they were cheap throwaway transportation. XS650 engines regularly exceed 100,000 miles without major rebuilds. Many reach 120,000 miles with only routine maintenance. Some have gone even further. One owner reported a 1977 XS650 reaching 120,000 miles on the original engine. The bike had received regular oil changes and valve adjustments, but never needed internal engine work. The bottom end with its roller and ball bearings was still running strong. Multiple sources confirm XS650s commonly reaching six-figure mileage without needing rebores or cam chain replacement. The engine design proves tough enough to handle decades of use. The longevity surprises riders familiar with other motorcycles from the same era. British twins rarely made it past 50,000 miles without needing significant engine work. Many Japanese bikes from the 1970s don't survive to 100,000 miles with original engines. The XS650's durability comes from its conservative design. Yamaha didn't try to extract maximum horsepower. They built an engine that would run reliably at moderate power levels for a very long time. As of 2025, the XS650 has been out of production for 40 years, yet it remains one of the most popular platforms for custom motorcycle builds. Used XS650s that once sold for cheap have increased in price as demand from custom builders grew. Clean stock examples are harder to find. Many have already been customized, chopped, or modified, but the supply of parts remains strong. Companies continue manufacturing XS650 components decades after Yamaha stopped building the bikes. You can still buy everything needed to build or rebuild an XS650 from aftermarket suppliers. 40 years after production ended, XS650s still pound down roads, rumble through garages, and slide through dirt track corners. The vibration that motorcycle journalists complained about became the character that riders loved. The simplicity that seemed outdated became the feature that ensured survival. Would you choose a bike that vibrates, requires frequent maintenance, and lacks modern features? Or would you choose one that simply refuses to quit? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories about motorcycles that outlasted their manufacturer's expectations, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell.